A stone demands a sacrifice. In order to get the stone, you must give up the thing you love.
Yeah, no, I remember.
Are you having difficulty deciding?
No, it's just, you know, I'm really thirsty.
You're thirsty? Okay, you know what? We're done here.
Still thirsty!
Jesus, 10 years of my life.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, where today I'm tossing you a little challenge. Hit the subscribe button before Black Widow hits the pavement. It's called the Sell Your Soul Stone, to the algorithm, of course.
Is this the greatest power in the universe?
After a delay of almost 2 whole years thanks to the pandemic, Marvel's Black Widow solo movie is finally in theaters, and I gotta say, it is not for the kiddos. Don't get me wrong, as an adult, thought it was totally fine. I enjoyed a lot of it, but between suffocating pigs played for laughs, non-consensual hysterectomy jokes, and a very real undertone of child trafficking, it was an intense way of hopping back into the big screen MCU.
Okay, it has a lot of pockets, but I use them all the time, and I made some of my own modifications.
I like your vest.
God, I knew it. I knew you did. It's so cool, right?
Aw, never mind. Screw those hundreds of people dying in an avalanche. These brainwashed killers are so #relatable. But in all seriousness, I gotta say, having the MCU, this huge staple of movie-going culture back in theaters, really does feel like a symbol of things coming back into place. Kind of like a page being turned. On the other hand, you might be thinking, well, that's a nice sentiment, Matpat, but how much of a film theory can you get out of Black Widow when it's a 2-year-old movie and a prequel, so we already know where all of this is headed. To which I say, oh ye of little faith, have you forgotten that we're still finding new theories in classics like WALL-E? Heck, the new Shang-Chi trailer revealed that the Abomination is back, and we haven't seen that guy since the Incredible Hulk 13 years ago. Theory crafting never dies. But yeah, sure, we do have to work our precognitive muscles extra hard on this one, considering the main character's future is, past before it even begins. And thanks to all the release schedule shakeups, big Easter egg teaser moments like the end credit reveal of Contessa Valentina weren't such a big deal since they'd already happened on the smaller screen.
These boots are not made for walking. Valentina, Allegra, De Fontaine.
No, my dear theorists, what I want to focus on today is something that flew under everyone else's radar. A series of throwaway jokes from the movie that no one is really talking about, but I suspect might be more than just one-liner gags. In fact, I think these little quippy, jokey moments might be setting up one of Marvel's deadliest and most disgusting villains. An evil version of Captain America. No, sorry, not that one. It's a different one. There's honestly a lot of them. Get ready to pull an Abomination and wait another 13 years for this one to pay off, but I think Black Widow, without anyone realizing it, set up the introduction of the villain you're gonna love to hate, the disgustingly evil William Burnside. I tried to make it sound intimidating, but Burnside. No, it's not really. He's really bad. Also, waiting 13 years for this one to pay off. Hope you wound up hitting that subscribe button earlier. I'll see you all back here in 2034 to tell me how wrong I was. Anyway, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, Black Widow actually takes place in between Civil War and Infinity War in the overall timeline, but it focuses on Marvel's favorite meta-moral of the 21st century, found family.
He may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy.
So I am no more than another stolen relic.
You're my son. I wanted only to protect you from the truth.
Family back together again.
Nothing says acceptable mother figure quite like the woman that forced you to be a sleeper agent for Mother Russia in your formative years before sending you off to be mutilated and brainwashed against your will into a soldier for the state using technology that she built. But don't worry, everything is forgiven because there's an emotional hand squeeze at the end. I don't mind that I can't birth children anymore and that you brainwashed my sister against her will for multiple decades of her life. It's good to see you again, Mom. Anyway, while her surrogate mother was busy torturing pigs, her surrogate dad, Alexei Shostakov, was out having the sort of adventures that I'm gonna be talking about today. You see, he wasn't just any former Russian spy, but rather a Cold War era super soldier. The Soviet Union's would have been answer to Captain America, the Red Guardian, an over-the-hill, out-of-shape ultimate dad bod superhero.
Okay.
It still fits.
And while he's kinda clueless and largely obsessed with his own good old days, he also keeps bringing up one story that caught my attention, his fight against Captain America.
So, I have the nuclear code, but there he is. Captain America.
grab hold of his shield. Face to face, it's a test of strength. Anyway, this shield, I use it to my advantage. I take it, I push him out the window.
Now, we know that this can't be true. Captain America, aka Steve Rogers, was frozen from 1945 until the early 21st century. There was no way for him to be around at the end of the Cold War when Alexei would have been active as the Red Guardian. And the movie actively calls him out on this fact.
What year was this? I don't know. Like 83, 84. Captain America was still frozen in ice then.
Are you calling me a liar or something? Huh?
So on the surface, it seems like a simple joke and a really clever, efficient bit of screenwriting to get across what people who've never heard of this obscure Marvel character need to know about him for the movie. He was a super soldier, he has the same basic powers as Captain America, and he tells obviously fake tall tales because he's that sort of guy. They debunk it, they move on, except, funny thing, they keep going back to it.
Did he talk to you about me? Trading more stuff.
Who? What are you talking about?
Captain America. My great adversary in this theater of geopolitical conflict.
Okay, so there it is again, which means something else is going on. By the rules of screenwriting, the Captain America fight has been set up for us in the Red Guardian's first scene. We're then reminded of this story at the midpoint of the film, which means that there's gonna be some sort of payoff, right? Like maybe he meets Captain America in some funny way, or as part of his emotional journey, he admits that he never fought Captain America. And even though everyone already knew that, it's a big deal for him because he's been living in denial the whole time. But no, nothing ever comes of it. Is it maybe a weird Easter egg reference to a 1983 or 84 era comic book where the two of them fought? Nope. The two do fight once in Avengers number 44, but it has nothing to do with that 80s reference, which feels oddly specific. Could it be a reference to real life history? Again, not really. I mean, the Soviet Union boycotted the 1984 Summer Olympics, where the Russian state and 14 of its ally nations refused to participate in the Olympic Games in Los Angeles in response to the US having boycotted the 1980 Games in Moscow. But again, that's completely disconnected from anything in the movie. So could it have just been a joke? Red Guardian's actor David Harbour doesn't really know. In an interview with Inverse, Harbour says, quote, "I will say the stories are absolutely true 100%. Part of the fun thing about Alexei is that I wasn't interested in reality. He doesn't even know that he's lying." In another interview with The Wrap, he says, quote again, "I don't know. Like, I don't know, and they won't let me tell you even if I did know, but I don't." So let's go back into MCU lore, shall we? Let's see if this battle could have actually taken place based on everything we know. For those who skipped it, or those who just forgot, the Disney Plus series Falcon and the Winter Soldier told the story of how the government gave innocent people the super soldier serum and then tortured them to figure out how to make the serum work for more people. One such victim was Isaiah Bradley, who fought in the Korean War.
A handful of us got shot up with different versions of that serum. They sent us on missions. For the next 30 years, they experimented on me, trying to figure out why the serum worked.
The Korean War lasted from 1950 to 1953. After the war, we're told that he was imprisoned and suffered through 3 decades of brutal testing before his death was faked and Isaiah was freed under a new identity. So it's unlikely that Red Guardian went up against Isaiah specifically, but with Red Guardian saying 1983 and 1984, the timing does line up for the government to have had other super soldier candidates running around being active at the same time. So to recap, we have Steve Rogers trapped in ice and the first round of super soldier experiments from the 50s completed with the test subjects all mostly dead, but what Isaiah's story tells us is that by the 80s, it's highly likely that the government had a better version of the serum to use. I mean, consider this. The government had one secret super soldier fighting in the Korean War in the form of Isaiah Bradley. Why not have some others at later points in history as well? And it could easily have been one of those who fought the Red Guardian. The one thing that we do know about Alexei is that, while he's certainly big and kinda dumb and definitely a braggart, he's also the most honest of Black Widow's team. So if we allow that he's not simply making the whole thing up, we have to allow for the possibility that he's telling the truth. As far as he knows it, he actually did fight, not necessarily the Captain America, but a Captain America. And this, I think, is the key. You see, in April of 1984, there's that year again, Marvel released What If number 44. What If was a Marvel anthology series published from 1977 to 2011, which it's basically what it said on the cover. Each issue told a single self-contained story imagining if famous events from the Marvel Comics continuity had happened differently in some way, allowing writers to try out alternate takes on characters or just explore ideas and concepts that fans otherwise would never have a chance to see. It's basically the same premise as the upcoming Disney Plus animated series of the same name. But here's why it matters to Red Guardian's story. You see, What If number 44's big concept was what if Captain America came back today? As in, what if Steve Rogers had stayed frozen rather than thawing in the mid-60s like he had in the official Marvel continuity in the comics. And the result of that what if was that the United States would transform into a fascist dictatorship where all dissent is crushed and minorities are forced to live in racially segregated ghettos, all under the iron fist of Captain America, a guy who happens to look exactly like Steve Rogers. You heard that right. In What If number 44, if Steve Rogers stayed frozen, a new Steve Rogers lookalike would rise and replace him, taking on the role of Captain America, and this guy would be evil AF. His name? William Burnside. Again, tried to make it sound a lot more intimidating than it actually is. It is not that intimidating of a name. What's even weirder, though, is that this guy was, at one point in the comics, an official, actual Captain America. No what-ifs needed. It gets a bit confusing, so follow me on this one. In the Marvel Comics canon, just like it is in the movies, Steve Rogers becomes Captain America around 1941. He fights during World War II, and he's involved in a final mission where he becomes frozen, only to be rediscovered in the modern world. But his story didn't always go that way. See, the original Captain America World War II comics were actually written during World War II, when Marvel was called Timely and American superhero comics were at their peak popularity. And originally the story didn't end with Steve meeting a tragic fate, he just kinda kept going after the war. But without any Nazis to fight, publishers struggled to find ways to keep characters like Cap relevant, at one point even trying to market the series as a horror comic. Most infamously though was when the property jumped on the McCarthyism Red Scare bandwagon of the 1950s and rebranded Steve Rogers as Captain America Commie Smasher. It did not go over super well. Eventually superheroes vanished from store shelves for over a decade until the genre regained popularity in the 1960s when Marvel decided they wanted to bring Captain America back in the pages of the Avengers. Except they wanted to sweep all that awkward and embarrassing post-war era Cap under the rug, so they took the chance to retcon his story by creating his new, cooler and less problematic origin story, a heroic soldier from World War II who bravely fought Nazis before winding up frozen in time. Except it turned out that not everyone forgot about the Commie Smasher, and those readers demanded an answer as to what happened to that version of Captain America. Marvel's answer was a bit confusing. Someone who looked just like Steve Rogers, who also had super soldier powers, had been operating as Captain America while Steve was a human rocket pop. In Captain America number 153, Marvel shocked its readers with the story of William Burnside, a scientist and historian in the 1950s who'd grown up obsessed with old school American patriotism and Captain America specifically, like in a psycho stalker sense. Not only did he try to develop his own bootleg super soldier serum, he got plastic surgery and altered his vocal cords to look and sound just like Steve Rogers. Also, he could beat the red menace of communism and minorities and liberals and anyone else he deemed a non-patriot. Seriously, this guy is essentially John Walker from Falcon and the Winter Soldier cranked up to 1,000, with the same serum ramping up his super strength, also granting him the power of super bigotry. Worst power ever. Eventually, he's defeated by the original Cap, but it leaves the real Steve Rogers shaken and disturbed to know that someone could have taken that kind of negative lesson from him. And since then, he's reappeared several times over the years as one of Marvel's most increasingly dark and twisted bad guys, at one point becoming the Grand Director, which, if the uniform didn't give it away, he's the leader of the Marvel Universe's KKK. Anyway, the story was written by Steve Englehart, which is also important since the MCU has been adapting parts of his 70s and 80s work a lot recently. He wrote the original Vision and the Scarlet Witch miniseries that partly inspired WandaVision. He was responsible for the epic Avengers Celestial Madonna saga, which created a bunch of lore for Kang the Conqueror and might have just ended up inspiring some of Loki. He co-created Shang-Chi, and he was also responsible for another famous Captain America storyline called Secret Empire, which was the first time Steve Rogers gave up the shield after becoming disillusioned by discovering US government corruption, so one of several stories that contributed to Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So with all that in mind, you see where this is going. Red Guardian did indeed fight Captain America in the 80s, but not Steve Rogers, not the Captain America that we know. Instead, he fought one of the offshoots of the Isaiah Bradley research, William Burnside, a lookalike obsessed with Steve and with a toxic sense of patriotism. The timeline of events in the MCU work, the 1984 date lines up with that iconic What If comic. It falls in line with Marvel's current obsession with the works of Steve Englehart, but most importantly, it's an interesting story that lets him continue exploring the same theme that made Steve Rogers compelling in the first place. What happens when you ask a person to become a symbol?
Not a perfect soldier, but a good man.
So, when will we see this fight actually happen? Will we ever see it happen? I say yes. Either it's gonna appear in the new What If series, in which case we only have a little while to wait, or Disney is waiting to see the public reaction to Red Guardian and the Black Widow movie to determine whether any of those characters should continue on to get their own series. But regardless, I don't see those lines as a one-off joke. It's the sort of thing that Marvel has historically done. Layer in something that they can pay off later down the line if they want, or let it fall by the wayside so everyone forgets about it if consumer interest goes another way. But considering how much the internet loved Red Guardian and how cool an evil doppelganger Captain America story would be, I wouldn't expect this one to just fade away. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut.